here tonight for a live webinar, and I brought a special guest with me. Let me have you guys say hello to Miss Daisy. Daisy shows up in my posts often. She is our Half Size Me community mascot. She's out walking and doing her thing. Who doesn't love this dog? Isn't she adorable? Anyway, she just wanted to come and tell you safe and happy travels this summer. Right now we're going to be having a really bad rainstorm, and she is scared to death, so she might be hanging out with us here in the old podcasting room. But I just wanted Daisy to say hi to everybody. And what I'm going to be doing tonight, besides putting Daisy down, is I am going to be talking to you about how to transform your travels. That's right. Ever since I've been doing this, I see a frenzy of scaredness, a concern about what am I going to do? I'm going on vacation, Heather. There's a cruise. There's a buffet. There's going to be all these unexpected eating events. What do I do, and how do I manage myself through my travels to where I don't gain a bunch of weight, I don't backslide, I don't come home and forget everything and go back to my old ways, and how do I enjoy myself in this newfound healthy eating world that I'm in now? And so we're going to really work tonight on helping you transform your travels. Before we get started, I want to just introduce myself. This is a Facebook Live, which means this might be your very first time meeting me. So I just want to say hello again. Of course, you met the lovely Miss Daisy. And what we're going to be doing tonight is the first thing I want to let you know, I'm Heather Robertson. I am the host of the Half Size Me show. It has been a podcast that we've been producing since 2012, so we're like old school podcast here. And this, you can go back, listen to the archive. You've got hundreds of hours of podcasts that you can go through. And the reason that we started this was so I could help people start to change their thinking about how to lose this weight in a permanent and maintainable way. I myself have struggled with my weight since I was a kid. Really started for me around probably about second grade. I started to continuously put on weight, really started struggling even with binge eating when I was 8 years of age. I was really kind of in a bad position in high school. I was well over 200 pounds, really struggling. So of course, what did I do? Went on a crash diet, lost a bunch of weight, went to college, gained it all back plus 90 more pounds, continued to yo-yo diet through my 20s, finally got pregnant and was going to have my first son in my 30s, and decided I wanted to change how I was doing things. Wanted to actually lose this weight in a permanent way. I was really good at losing 30, 50 pounds, whatever, but then I would binge and inevitably go backslide and put all the weight back on. So I know the pain and the struggle of doing this. I also know the transformation that has to happen with things like your travel habits, your holiday habits, things like that, because those don't change the same way that your daily 9-to-5 change. And so I've got, of course, a lot of experience now, having coached hundreds of people since 2015. I've been a full-time life/weight loss coach. But I also have been doing this for myself, right? So I understand from that level, I understand from working with others and community members. So what's really great is I have this collective view of what's worked for me and what I've seen work for so many other people. So when I bring this information to you, it's things that generally speaking have worked for someone somewhere that I've had contact with. Now, that all being said, I am not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, a medical professional, therapist, counselor. I am just strictly sharing what, again, has worked either for me personally or what has worked for somebody that I have helped in some way. So that is where I'm coming from. I myself have walked this walk. I have transformed my own life. I've been maintaining my weight since 2012, which, again, if you really go and listen to the show, what you're going to notice is that my goal is not for you just to lose weight. Anyone can lose weight. You come down to Florida, we'll lock you in a room, we'll feed you a controlled calorie diet, put you on a treadmill, we'll get weight off. That's not the question. The question always is how will I maintain this while I'm living my life, while I'm going on dates on the weekends, while I'm traveling on vacation? How do I do this day in, day out, year in, year out, to where I don't have to do this over and over and over again, right? That's the goal. So what we're going to be giving away tonight is a couple wonderful freebies. one freebie that I want to give away is I have accumulated a list of foods that I give and recommend to my coaching clients that I have put into my travel teaching my teaching toolkit, Transform Your Travel. And I'm going to give it to you for free. And what this is this has been a lot of trial and error. These are the foods that I typically buy when I go on vacation, or I will take with me in airplanes, or I will buy when I get to my location. And I want to give it to you for free. So if you would like to get this list of foods that work really well on travel, that help keep me on track, all you have to do is go to halfsizeme.com/travel food, TRAVEL food, and there you will just put your email address in, and I will be giving you my complete list of travel foods that I highly encourage you to have on hand. These are things that work really well. We have some wonderful moderators from the community who have graciously agreed to come on and to help us out tonight, and they are going to be throwing up the links to different things I mentioned, or helping you guys find things. And as you have questions for me, okay, all you have to do is post your question, and then the latter part of our discussion tonight, I will be covering those, and the moderators will be copying those and making those available to me in a document, so I will have access to that. All right, so tonight we're going to be talking Transform Your Travel. So the very first thing I want you to think about when we're thinking about traveling is in your life, you've got kind of different ecosystems, okay? And so what is an ecosystem? The Britannica defines it as the complex of living organisms, their physical environment, and all their interrelationships in a particular unit of space. So it's the organism, it's this space, it's things that live within those spaces. And the reason we struggle with travel and where the panic comes in is you've got your 9 to 5 Monday through Friday routine where you go to the gym, you eat certain foods, everything's very controlled, right? And you feel super comfortable in that ecosystem because that's what you're familiar with. But when we think about our vacation habits, I want you to think back to the last vacation you took, or maybe the ones in the past, right? Before you decided, okay, I'm ready to get healthy, ready to start changing my eating, starting to exercise. Think about what that looked like. Now, I am going to be totally honest with you and say, when my husband and I used to travel when we were at our heaviest, it was all about the food. It was buying all the snacks for the car because God forbid we didn't have food with us, right? The combos, the pretzels, the chips, things that we might not even buy in our everyday lives. We had to have them because we're on vacation, for goodness sakes. You get to eat all the food, right? It's a strange world or vortex. You go on vacation and it's like nothing else, no other rules or regulations exist because you're on vacation, right? So we would load up the car with the food. We would plan our trip based on where we were going to go and what restaurants we were going to eat at. So our travel habits were really unhealthy, but they weren't the things we did on a day-to-day basis. These were almost above and beyond unhealthy compared to our daily behaviors. So to expect that the way I live my life, my ecosystem of Monday through Friday, the regiment of being at work and eating my lunches and making my dinners, all of that does not fit into the ecosystem of travel, okay? So what we want to think about is our travel is its own thing. And what we're going to be doing is every time you take a trip, every time you make a pass at your travel, you're going to be slightly modifying what you do trip to trip, vacation to vacation. So when I work with my coaching clients, we really think about what do their old vacation behaviors look like. Maybe they eat out all the time. Maybe they don't prioritize any movement in. Maybe they were like I was and they planned the entire trip about the food, right? And what I start to do is say, okay, what's one small thing you're willing to do to start to change that? Maybe they are willing to get an Airbnb where they can actually eat breakfast in their room or in their hotel room, and maybe they don't eat out 3 meals a day, maybe they only eat out 2. So what we want to be thinking about is, what does my vacation normally look like, And if I'm going to make one small point of improvement, what can it be? Because why? Your vacation is not your Monday through Friday routine. Your weekends are its own ecosystem. Hence why people struggle on the weekends. They're wanting Monday through Friday routines to seamlessly flow into weekends. That doesn't happen for 99% of the population. When I work with my clients, we first focus on what they do the majority of the week, Monday through Friday, and then we start to look at weekends separately because they're a whole other beast to focus on. And that requires a lot of us looking at the structure of the weekend and starting to replace it. So weekends are its own thing. Weekdays are its own thing. Travel for pleasure and travel for business can actually look different. So you want to be writing down a list of what do I normally do, travel for pleasure, and if you're somebody who travels for business, what do you do to travel for business? And think about how those two things look and what are some of the habits and behaviors that you have on a routine basis. Okay, I will do my best. We are making sure I'm getting the questions. All right, so now that we have this idea of an ecosystem, and what does an ecosystem mean? It means it's got its own behaviors with it, right? If we're thinking of tundra, grasslands, we're thinking of forest, right? You're visioning these different ways of living. Different animals live there, different climates, different foods, and that's how you want to think about these categories for your habits. So we're going to be focusing on travel habits. And what we want to be doing is thinking about what do I normally do on vacation and what is a point of improvement. So we're going to go ahead and talk tonight a little bit about some of the things you can start to do to help you. One thing I would encourage you to have is a notebook that you will start to journal your travel ecosystem habits that you're changing in. So for example, tonight, one of your assignments could be, I'm going to list out what a normal vacation looks like for me. Before I started doing all this, before I started worrying about my health, what did a traditional vacation look like for me? Really get that on paper. But then once you do, now you've got a framework to start to change that. You do not want to change it all, and you do not want to change it fast, because really, if you think about it, what's the point of vacation? It's to have a change from your normal everyday life. You don't go on vacation so you can basically be business as usual, unless it's a work-related trip. So if this is for pleasure, you want to actually enjoy yourself, which means that if you force a lot of change into your next vacation, you're going to kind of be miserable, resentful, and you may not want to be doing the whole process. So we want to look for just some simple things that you can start to improve upon, okay? So the very first thing we want to think about when we're thinking about travel is before you go. So there's before you go, during the trip, post-trip. This is how you want to think about classifying those behaviors. So before you go, if you're like most people, you're super concerned about getting ready for the trip. You might be wanting to make sure that you got your suitcase packed, you got your tickets, you got all that stuff done. But what you might not be thinking about, and this to me is the most important thing, it's not your vacation, it's when you get home. When you get home from your vacation is a crucial moment between vacation and getting back to normal routine. And what I see is a lot of people are so busy getting ready for the trip, they don't think about the future you who's going to come back from this trip and maybe have to the next day jump back into work. If you have that situation, then the thing you want to be thinking about before you go is creating a very simple meal plan for the week that you get back. Already having it done. Don't expect that when you come back from a trip, you're going to jump back into it. This is going to prohibit it from becoming an extra week of vacation, because here's what normally happens for most people. They go on vacation, they come back on a Sunday, they have to be at work on a Monday, they then realize there's no food in the house, they've got all this dirty laundry, they've got a whole week's worth of emails and stuff they've got to get caught up with. So they never really had time to go to the store, they never had a time to think through what they were going to make. So it almost becomes a secondary week of eating out. Your whole schedule is just thrown off. You're eating out more often than you normally would if you hadn't come back from vacation. And so instead of just missing 1 week of normal behavior, you're now missing 2 weeks of normal behavior. So for you, before you go, you want to have a meal plan prepared. You might want to set up grocery delivery for the day you get back, or ask a friend or family member to go by and do curbside pickup and bring your groceries home. So setting your future self up for success when you return back from your vacation. You also want to set your intentions before you leave for vacation. What do I mean by that? Intentions. Well, often when we go on vacation, we're going to be doing things differently than what we normally do. And what you want to do is look at your past travel experiences and say, what normally happens when I get back? If and when I step on the scale, do I see that I've gained weight, I've lost weight, or I've stayed the same? And most people do tend to gain weight. I have had some clients where that's not the case. They say that that's the one time a year it's easy for them to lose weight. They're less stressed, they're physically more active, they've got more walking around and things like that. So be honest with yourself. What does it normally look like when you get back from vacation? If you normally see the scale goes up a couple pounds, wouldn't it make sense, instead of assuming so where part of our struggle comes in is we think in our mind, I should have lost weight on vacation, or I shouldn't gain any weight on vacation. Well, is that an honest depiction of what normally happens? If you normally always come back from vacation a couple pounds heavier, wouldn't it make sense to actually state your intentions before you go? My intention is I would like to gain no more than the normal 2 pounds I gain, or maybe even maintain while I'm gone. But I have that expectation, so I'm not disappointed, feeling frustrated when I step on the scale and I see I'm up 2 pounds and I say, well, there you go, here's proof I can't do this healthy lifestyle and go on vacation. Instead of doing that to yourself, what if you were to actually say, I normally gain 2 or 3 pounds on vacation. I'm going to go with the assumption that's probably going to happen. And so I am going to just make that my intention. So when I come back and I do step on the scale, I don't feel frustrated. I don't beat myself up. That's my normal, that's what normally happens. The more that you refine your travel habits, guess what? You go from somebody who gains a couple pounds to somebody who actually can maintain their weight on vacation. And maybe every great once in a while you come back a little bit later, but ultimately you become more in control. When I would go on vacation, I easily could have gained 5 pounds in my past. Easy peasy. I was eating all kinds of things I wouldn't normally eat. I was eating out 3 meals a day and definitely getting my fill. I went with the idea of overdoing it. I truly did. I was on vacation, so that meant I should. Now, when I go on vacation, I eat the way I normally do. I have an indulgent meal per day, per trip, and I always come back about the exact same weight. I don't struggle with that anymore, but it took years and years of me refining my travel habits. One habit at a time, one trip at a time, over time. It wasn't a overnight thing that happened, and I didn't even want it to be. I just wanted to slowly, systematically change. It was, let's not buy snacks and take them in the car. That was number one. Or take better snacks, maybe apples and fruit and veggies and some, hard-boiled eggs, versus all the things we would normally take. It was one baby step at a time. So before you go, meal plan. Make sure groceries will be in your home when you return, and make sure you set an honest expectation of what you think will happen. What is your intentions with your weight? What do you expect will happen? Because here's the deal. If in the back of your mind you think I'm following my program and I should lose weight, and you are on vacation but you want to indulge, you will come back and you won't see what you expected on the scale, which will leave you feeling very frustrated. Whereas if you were a little bit more self-honest in this moment and said, I don't normally ever come back later than I left, so that might not be an honest expectation. So let's change that. All right. So then the next thing I want you to do before you go on your trip is set your calories to maintenance. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time in the show where Heather says, go to maintenance calories. Because the reality is you shooting for a deficit is kind of just painful and unnecessary. If this is truly a vacation for pleasure, this isn't a work-related trip. This isn't the I'm on vacation, but this is really somebody else's vacation. I'm just kind of meeting up with them. I'm talking like, no, this is the one you actually saved your money for. You actually had booked the tickets months in advance. You're going to this great location. You want to enjoy it. You're going to go ahead and bump those calories up to maintenance. And if you're somebody who is tracking, you're going to go in with the expectation I'm going to attempt to hit my maintenance calories, but if I do exceed it periodically, that's okay. I'm just going to be consistent with tracking, because at least if I know I'm aiming for my maintenance calories, it's going to feel a lot more doable on this trip than if I'm trying to shoot for taking a calorie deficit. So that's going to be the next thing we talk about. Now, I want you, before you leave, to book a place that's going to help you. And that can mean a couple different things. One, I always look for a place that has some kind of a kitchenette, refrigerator, microwave, whatever. Definitely a coffee maker, because gosh knows there's no way to travel without coffee. But definitely having those things. The other way that a place can help you is I've helped many of my coaching clients while traveling, and some of the things I've seen be super successful is making sure wherever you're going to be is within walking distance of a really nice convenience gas station that has a nice little food selection, maybe a grocery store, preferably if there's one within walking distance. Anything where if you're going to be in a location where you don't have transportation, you're within a walking distance of someplace you can buy food that's decent. That would be another one. So as you're going on, say, Airbnb, or you're looking at one of these travel place, websites, look and see, put the address in, see what's in the vicinity. If you're like out in the middle of nowhere and there are no grocery stores, no nothing, then that may not be a good supportive location for you, because one of my first rules on vacation is stopping at a grocery store first and foremost, getting the essentials, getting the fruits, the pre-cooked chicken, getting all that. So I have plenty of food to keep me going when I need to in between meals, or if they are my meals. So just want to mention that the area is supportive. All right, so pre-planning in movement. When you go on vacation, one of the things you can start to look at is, am I in a location where movement is naturally going to happen? So if you pick something like a city environment where you're walking everywhere and you're not going to Uber and you're not going to use a taxi, you know you're going to get your movement in just from walking from place to place, right? So you don't have to stress. And if this is a fun vacation for you, you don't have to kill yourself getting into the gym. I don't, every time I go on vacation, show up at a gym somewhere. Sometimes I give myself a vacation from the gym, and that's a lot of fun, but it doesn't mean I don't move, right? So think about, okay, how is movement going to happen? If you look at where you're going and you're like, man, there's nowhere for me to walk. I've been in this situation, by the way. I've gotten a couple Airbnbs where it's like literally I can't, there's nowhere to naturally walk, like I have to go to a different location in order to walk. Then you may want to start to think about, how can I get things in? So if you find you're in a location where no movement is going to happen, I was staying at a lake house, and the lake house was on this, it was like the house was literally on this extremely busy interstate road, and other than being on a lake, I couldn't go anywhere. Like I couldn't just naturally take Daisy and take her for a walk. So I had to get Daisy and go in a car, go to another neighborhood where it had streets and I could walk. So you need to kind of make sure you know how movement is going to happen. And in that case, I actually did some of these, what was it, Jessica TV, it's not the walk away the pounds, but she does these little like 10-15 minute walking videos, and I totally did those while I was at this place, because otherwise I would never have been able to walk around. It just didn't lend itself to that. All right, so you're pre-planning where you can get your movement. Give yourself a day off from your vacation. So when you are getting ready to leave for vacation, one of the things I love the best is if you can take a half day off when you get back, or a full day off. So if that means you come back on Saturday, you start work back on Monday, that would give you Sunday off. Or if you come back on Sunday, take Monday off and go back on Tuesday. Almost everyone that I have worked with needs one day in between the transition of coming home from vacation and going back to work. That's the time that you catch up on the laundry. If you didn't get your groceries delivered and you need to go get them, that's the day to go do it. You could even do a little food prep, pack some food. It literally, that 24 hours can be transformational when you're segueing from traveling back into home life. So I really would encourage you from here on out, when you plan vacation and travel, always try to plan that at least a half of a day, if not a full day. And I've had clients that'll do a half day. They'll say, I'm going to come in later in the day on Monday. I'm not going to start at the normal time. And they use the morning to get all those things done. So I'm going to encourage you to think about that. Structure your time on vacation. What? Heather, insanity. I'm going on vacation because there is no structure. Yeah, that's okay to a point. Where I see people struggle with vacation, and even weekends for that matter, is that because there is no structure, what happens is your eating patterns go out the window. When your eating patterns go out the window, you're going to become overly hungry, maybe dehydrated, and before you know it, you might be eating things you wouldn't normally eat. So when you're thinking about what are some behaviors that I could start to talk or change over time, right? We're only going to focus on one behavior at a time for each trip. It could be to make sure that you actually structure in your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that you have time allotted for those meals and that you are eating adequately about every 4 hours. It doesn't mean you have to stay with your home-based schedule, that Monday through Friday routine, but it does mean that you need to be honoring your body. And even if you're waking up 2 hours later because you're on vacation, you still would eat within the certain amount of time your body's used to. You would have a normal lunch, you would have a normal dinner. You don't want to be skipping a lot of meals, and you definitely don't want to not be hydrating. I just had a coaching call today with one of my clients who told me how much more amazing she feels now that she's drinking water more often. She's not feeling as puffy as she once was, how she's not as hungry, and she thinks a lot of it was thirst because she just wasn't well hydrated. And so not being hydrated on vacation can have the exact same effect. And it's easy on vacation to get distracted because everything's so exciting, you're out adventuring, and it's easy not to be well hydrated and well fed. Make sure that you get your list of travel foods. So I already made that available to you, which I'll again say, just in case you missed it, it's halfsizeme.com/travel food. That list, I always take it, I print it out, I go through, I literally just stop in at the grocery store when I get there, if it's something that's like an Airbnb. A lot of those foods are ones I've also taken on myself or my suitcase on an airplane. And so that list of travel foods, I keep it in my computer, I just print it out and I take it, so that way I know exactly what to get. Before you go, take a look, plan for when you return home from the trip, and that's a little bit about what we talked about before. Before you leave, make sure you've got a plan for your meals, a plan for your workouts. That's the other thing. A lot of times when we get back into it, if our schedule is thrown off, a lot of times not only do we find we're eating out a lot more, we might find we take a secondary week of skipping our gym routine, going to our classes, maybe not meeting up with our trainer. And that is when that slippery slope starts to happen, where travel behaviors bleed into regular life behaviors because you didn't prioritize structuring in your return. And this is what I want to encourage you, even if you're just doing small workouts, even if you're just doing some simple routines, have those already pre-structured into your calendar for when you get back. And if you do what I'm suggesting by already having the meal plan, already having the groceries pre-ordered and ready for delivery or pickup, and you've given yourself a half or a full day of buffer for when you return, it will be easy for you to segue right back in to your normal living routine. But if you don't do all of those things, then you're gonna feel like the vacation stretches out for another week. You're gonna feel kind of down because you're not eating the way you want. You're not getting in your movement. It all feels like it's bleeding over. And then that's where I see a lot of people starting to fall apart, because it wasn't the vacation, it was the lack of preparation for when the vacation ended. So those are all things that I want you to keep in mind. So your assignment is this. If we're talking about a pleasure vacation, meaning this is not for work, this is you with your family or going to a great location, this is for fun. Number one, I want you to brainstorm all of the things you normally do that are health related. So how do you eat? How do you move? How do you structure your time when you get back? How do you do those things normally, under normal circumstances? Make a master list of all the habits you think could be changed over time. How often you guys eat out, what kind of snacks you eat, how much alcohol you consume, when you consume alcohol, how you get movement in. All of those things are important. Then what I want you to do is only pick one behavior to focus on your next trip. You're not going to do that whole list. That's too much. Pick one thing. Say, okay, I normally eat out 3 meals every time we go out. I don't cook. I don't buy anything. I just treat it like, hey, I'm on vacation. I just eat whatever. Instead of treating your body that way, what if you were to say, you know, I'm going to work on just eating breakfast at my hotel before I hit the road running. You've now just taken control of 1/3 of your food intake for the day just by choosing to eat breakfast in your hotel. Then the next time you go, so not this time, but the next time you go, you might add on to that and say, you know, breakfast went really well. Now I'm going to continue with that. But maybe now I also pack a lunch. Like we're going to be out sightseeing all day. So maybe I pack a lunch and I take it with me and I just indulge at dinner. I eat dinner out. Now you've just within 2 trips reformed much of your eating habits on vacation, okay? But you got to start small. Then maybe the 3rd trip, you go, you know, I normally buy a lot of fun food for snacks. I mean, we get big bags of chips and we get big bags of candy and we have all that laying around. So maybe the one small change I'm going to make is I'm going to buy individually portioned chips. I'm going to buy single serving bags of candy. We won't do these big value size things and just kind of lay them up on the counter. We're going to get individual bags. So now you're reforming your snack habit. Now that's 3 or 4 trips in, right? So this might be almost a year's worth of progress and transforming travel habits, but they can be done. And if you keep adding one, and this, by the way, is why I'm encouraging you guys to have a journal. If you're constantly making these little changes from trip to trip, they add up. And you'll look back a year, 2 years later and go, man, my travel looks so much different than it once did. But it all starts with just one change right now. All right, so I am going to go and see if we have some questions. If you have questions for me, you're like, hey, Heather, I'm getting ready to go on a trip. Got a question. How do I deal with this? Or what could I do about this? I'm here to help. So you have a lot of ways you can get help, by the way, from me. One, when you sign up for the travel food list that I've mentioned here, you can also become a VIP subscriber. VIP subscribers get weekly emails from me to help you work on your mindset and your thoughts and your behaviors. You also can hit reply and send me a question for an Ask Coach Heather. So remember I told you about the podcast? 1 podcast or 2 podcasts per month, I answer questions that come in from the VIP email. So you could always do that. And then the other cool thing in the VIP email is I offer up an opportunity for somebody to get coaching, one-on-one coaching with me for a 20-minute call. So that's another option, but you have to fill out the form that's in the VIP email. So if you really like what I'm saying, if you feel like, you know, I could use some more help, I have more questions, you can definitely ask them tonight. Or what you can do is get on the VIP email and you can also communicate with me that way as well. So we did have a couple questions. The first one says, Heather, how does one maintain any kind of structure and advocate for yourself on vacation or travel? Great question, Julie. So I'm assuming if we're talking about going with another person, that's where the question is referring. So if you're going on a trip with somebody else, the things that you want to change should be ever so subtle as to not be a problem with others. So if you are going on vacation with another person, what you would say to them, let's just stick with the whole breakfast in your room thing. And this has happened, by the way. I've had some clients who, when they're going to be traveling with their spouse, and they want to introduce this, they'll have to have like a little heart-to-heart with them. And so what you say is, hey honey, you know, I know normally we would eat out every single meal on vacation, but this time I really want to try something different. I'm going to be focusing on us, you know, saving a little bit of money, also trying to be a little bit healthier. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to make, you know, some eggs, oatmeal, whatever in our room before we leave. If you still want to go out and get breakfast, feel free. I'm going to do this for myself. Because again, boundaries are, I can't control you, nor do I want to. You do what you want. But I'm gonna do this for myself. I'm gonna make a couple eggs in my room, I'll have my protein shake, have my oatmeal, whatever, and then that way I'm honoring myself in this process. And you can go out and have breakfast, and then when you're done, just, you know, swing back by and pick me up, or we can meet up at this location. And that way they get to do what they want. You've established what you're doing, and you two can connect at some point. If it was something as simple as the snacks, what you do is you say, you know, sweetheart, we're going to be traveling. Normally we buy a lot of snacks and things that maybe don't make me feel super great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be buying and bringing snacks that are a little bit better for me. Some hard-boiled eggs, cheese sticks, veggies, fruit, things like that. I'm going to make sure we have those things. If you want anything above and beyond that for the trip, please make sure you purchase it, because I'm not going to do it. Setting boundaries. You can choose to go buy the chips and the candies and whatever. I'm not going to go to the store and do it. I'm going to buy the things I think are healthy and that would suit me, and you can purchase your own. And see, in this case, you're laying the groundwork that you're doing these behaviors, and they're more than welcome to keep the old ones if they want, but you're making this decision for yourself. So I hope that helps, Julie. If there was anything else, just let me know. All right, this question comes from Donna. I just returned from a week of cruise, and I knew Wi-Fi wouldn't work and allow me to track with my app. So I thought I would just paper track utilizing a nutrition guide I downloaded. The problem I had was eating complex gourmet dishes versus plain chicken or steak. I tried to track them, but it became extremely frustrating and tedious. That then made it impossible to know if I was at maintenance or how far above. How do I handle the tracking? Because I travel like this quite a bit. All right, so good question, Donna. So Donna, in this case, you did exactly what I would recommend, which was to do just paper pencil tracking. I think that's great. And I want you to change your mindset about tracking on vacation. So you said you do this quite a bit, meaning travel. So I'm assuming all of it's for pleasure, but I always tell people if it's for business, if it's work-related travel, we need to change our thinking about it. So if you're traveling for just pleasure, then that's different than traveling for business. So I'm gonna go on the assumption that you are traveling for enjoyment, you're hitting the cruises, and that your question is how to do this. So first off, paper and pencil is a great idea. The goal with your tracking on vacation is not to be super anal retentive on the calories. It really isn't, because your guess is as good as mine as to what these fancy smancy dishes are calorie wise. The purpose of tracking and setting your calories to maintenance is, one, if you do know the values of things, is to have a reasonable goal to shoot for. But secondly, is to keep you mindful of what you're doing. Where we get in trouble on vacation with food is when we hit the cookie bar in the afternoon on a cruise, and then they offer free ice cream and we eat that. And then we have a handful of candy here and a bag of pretzels there. And what it is it's all this kind of mindless snacking, eating, or eating much larger, richer meals than we're used to, and not really having to think about it, not paying attention. It's kind of like by just generally tracking where you spend your money, you have a better idea of how much you're spending versus if you didn't put anything down at all. So I would encourage you to stay consistent with the tracking habit. And that's the other thing, you're continuing to keep up with your tracking habit even if the information is not 100% accurate. So that habit is super important, because that's the habit that keeps you aware of your behaviors. It doesn't mean it's always 100% accurate, okay? And we often sometimes put accuracy above consistency, and that is not the correct way to think about it. Try to focus on consistency Accuracy can fall off by the wayside from time to time because that's reality. You're not going to know 100% what's in every dish you eat all the time. But if you stay consistent with tracking things, you're always mindful and self-aware of what you're doing. So just want to point that out. But yes, if you're traveling for pleasure, paper and pencil if you do not have Wi-Fi. It's more about being aware of how much you're eating, how often you're eating, if you're eating way more fun foods and drinking more alcohol than you're used to, all of those things. Oh, great question. Okay, so thoughts on weighing yourself when you get back from vacation. When you get back from vacation, everyone write this down with me, okay? Make sure you got your notepad. 72 hours. Did everyone write 72 hours down? Write 72 hours. I do not want you to step on the scale before 72 hours of returning. I have done this so many times. It's the magic number, 72 hours. And I'm going to tell you why. I literally, one year I was coaching, I think I had 5 clients all go on vacation in the same week. Every single one of them went on vacation in the same week. They all came back. They all jumped on the scale the next day. They were up an average of 7 pounds. I did the math at the time that this happened. I had some as low as 3, one as high as 10. They all had been flying, they'd been traveling. They all freaked out. I kept having voicemail message after voicemail message about this whole scale thing right after travel. And I said the same thing to them. I wish I had told you to wait 72 hours, forgot to mention that. So then it was interesting. The same people who were kind of freaking out, the day after they got back, they jumped on the scale, like that self-punishment thing we do, right? Oh, I'm going to jump on the scale. I'm going to see what damage I did so I can get really miffed at myself, and then I can self-sabotage. So what happened was they all got on the scale. They saw their weight went up. They freaked out. They sent me a message. I told them, give it to the end of the week. They went back to their normal eating. The weight subsided. By the end of the week, I was getting all these sighs of relief. Oh my gosh, it's going back. You're right. It's not as bad as I thought. It was a lot of water weight, yada, yada, yada. So when you fly, you actually do retain more fluid. They've actually proven this. So there's a lot of things that happen internally due to cabin pressure. So if you're flying, you're immediately going to go with the assumption your scale weight will be higher. If you've been in climates you're not familiar with, too hot, too cold, your body will also change how it handles water retention. Not to mention the fact of the food you're eating and how that might impact you, and whether or not you exercise, and all these different factors. So I would encourage every single person when they go on vacation, when you get home, give yourself 72 hours before stepping on the scale. In that time frame, if you go back to normal eating, normal hydration, normal movement, your weight will start to restabilize at a much, much more normal place. But when you first get back, it will feel very high, and thus it's gonna be slightly inflated. So don't do it before the 72 hours because it's gonna just kind of drive you a little crazy. All right, this question comes from Sarah. Says, I'm going to Peru next month and it will be a very active vacation. Last time I went, eating enough food while I was there was something difficult because of the high elevations, making my appetite go way down. We climbed and walked all over the mountain and Inca ruins. So much so that I dropped 4 pounds in 10 days, and it was not water weight because it never came back. My issue is, after I got home, it took me almost 3 months to get back into a fitness routine. I just was so tired and then after a few weeks, couldn't seem to make myself do much of anything. I did okay with getting my eating back on track right away though. Any advice on getting or keeping a fitness routine after a super physically active week-long vacation that is going to wipe me out? So Sarah, in this case, I would treat this as if you were running a marathon. So like when I've worked with people who do some kind of a special sporting event, they do have a down week or so after that's over. So if you're doing something that's a vacation or trip where you're going to be doing physical things that you normally would never do, rock climbing, running a marathon, doing a triathlon, climbing these mountains in Peru, whatever, I would actually take what I would call a deload week the next week intentionally. I would not set myself up for failure, because these vacations are kind of physical endeavors in of themselves. So when you get back that next week, maybe what you do is, in place of your normal workouts, you plan either some walking, you do some kind of yoga, you do something that's more restorative, that gives you a chance to recoup, get your food levels balanced and back, get your hydration balanced and back. And then the subsequent week, not the week you return, but the week after that, that might be when you start to plan in some light workout routines that's more akin to what you were doing before the trip. But I wouldn't try to force my body to do these really physically active endeavors for a solid week, lose that kind of body weight, and then expect it to come back and do the same, when in reality it probably just needs a lot of rest and relaxation. So I would be focusing on more restorative work, like the walking, the yoga, things like that, gentle stuff. Give your body that chance to catch back up, then plan it the following week. So I hope that helps. All right, so those are the questions that thus far have been submitted. If you had any other questions regarding travel, I have time to take another question. And just to recap for tonight, what is the focus? It's slowly, systematically changing that ecosystem of your travel habits. Remember, you're used to your Monday through Friday routine. Those behaviors that are in that beautifully structured system are not going to be shoved into your travel vacation. So let that thought go. And I think that's where a lot of the panic comes in. People are like, man, I just want to do the things the way I've been doing them at my home. But not really, because otherwise, why would you go on vacation? Like, if you just want to do things the way you normally do them at home, you wouldn't go on vacation. You want to break away from the routine. But what you do want to start to do is look at those vacation behaviors, like imagine they're in their own little sphere, okay? And say, what about these can I slowly start to change to where my vacation on that within that realm starts to resemble more of my health priorities? How can I start to make that look a little bit less indulgent, or maybe even possibly damaging if you were like I was and how I used to eat on vacation, and make it a little bit more balanced, more supportive of my overall health goals? That's what we want to be doing. We don't want to go back in and say, okay, I got to be at my calorie deficit, got to be doing my workouts, got to be doing all of my food and cooking and prepping and no indulging. Like, we don't want to go in with that mindset, but we also don't want to be on the other extreme. We want to find this place where we can start to migrate our behaviors over closer to the health side of where we want to be versus maybe the more indulgent side where we have been in the past. And then again, to help you with this, just want to mention again that you guys do have access to this free downloadable travel food list, and you can find that at halfsizeme.com/travel foods. And I promise you guys, if you slowly, every time you take a vacation, just focus on one habit, one point of improvement, it will change over time. Donna says, can Heather clarify for me on the paper tracking? Should I just write the foods and meals down and not worry about the calories, just the list of foods? Exactly. If you're in some kind of situation where you're on a cruise, and let's just say they served you some chicken parmesan thing, right? But you're not even sure. If I'm in your shoes, I would just list out dinner, 1 serving, chicken parmesan, 1 piece of garlic toast. Just the process of writing that down and being self-aware, and then maybe say, okay, I had a glass of wine, right? 1 glass of wine. So you can see what you're doing. If you're journaling it as you go, and you're being aware and mindful of what you're doing, you're not going to get out of hand the way you would if you didn't have any clue whatsoever, okay? So in this case, if you're in that predicament and you're there for pleasure and enjoyment, I would be focusing on how can I make this work long term? Because if you're super frustrated because you don't know how many calories it is and you can't use your normal tracking app and all this sort of stuff, and you're going to say, screw it, forget tracking, and that's something that keeps you self-aware. Think about, why do people journal? You journal so you can get your thoughts out on paper so you can become more self-aware, right? That's the whole point of food journaling. It's so you start to notice patterns in your behavior. So you're aware when you start to overindulge or when you maybe have had a little bit more indulgence than you normally would. So you don't let that spiral and get out of control. So when we turn a blind eye to things, when we don't weigh ourselves, we don't track, we don't pay any attention whatsoever, we tend to find we tend to go in a negative direction, right? But by being self-aware, weighing yourself on the scale, maybe taking measurements, journaling your food in some respect, that keeps you aware of your choices and your actions. Again, I go back to, it's the same as if you're spending money at your checking account. If you're just roughly keeping a journal of it, if you're jotting down what you're paying in expenses, you're going to be well more aware of how much you have in that checking account than if you just randomly spend money and you don't pay any attention to it. That's why I think journaling is important. It's not about being meticulous with every single calorie or being spot on. It's about self-awareness. And if you're aware of your choices and actions, then it doesn't get out of control, right? So I hope that helps, Donna. All right, and that is the last question I am seeing for tonight. Good deal. All right, so if you need help from me, make sure to get on the VIP newsletter. I'm going to be doing another one of these events, and we're going to be focusing on coming up protein, which I have some really good resources that I have found on protein that I want to share with you. I'm also going to be doing some for the holiday season to kind of get you guys primed for that. So if you want to know about the Facebook Lives and you want to be made aware of it so you don't forget, again, that's something we do for VIPs. We send them out an email just reminding them so they can join in. But I would love to be able to connect with you. If you have questions for me, you're on the VIP newsletter, just hit reply. All of that's options there for you as well. And then don't forget to check out the show. We release a new episode every Monday. So we just had a new episode go out yesterday. And that's a way to keep you engaged in the process, to get you some help, hear how other people are doing it, what I'm doing in my journey, all the new things that are coming up. And then in the community, if you need some additional help in a more of a supportive way, I'm currently rolling out the Half Size Me program. And what that is it's going to be 4 modules. Each module focuses on different topics that have helped me lose my weight and keep it off, and have helped community members and my coaching clients. So these are going to be 12-week programs that I walk you through exactly what to do, how much time to spend. You're going to be focusing on coursework, on some supplementary materials, but these are going to be things that help you with things like figuring out your calories, figuring out how to get exercise in, changing your habits, dealing with the holidays, making sure that you got your binge eating under control, setting boundaries, managing your time. All of these things are going to be in the Half Size Me program in either modules 1, 2, 3, or 4. So I really would encourage you, if you need some extra guidance and help, the community would be a great way. We're going to be opening up, I believe it's Tuesday, August the 6th. So you just get on our when you're on our VIP newsletter, you can request to be updated on that as well. You guys have a great night. Thank you for joining me. I really hope that helped you with some of your travel plans. And if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We are here to help you. You guys have a great night.